What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to the Full 90. It is time for the Week 16 Premier League predictions. Here are the winning accumulators we had since the last Premier League video. If you want to pause it and take a closer look for yourself, you can do that. As you can see, a bunch in the Champions League and Championship last night as well. So yeah, as I said, if you want to pause, feel free to do that. But let's move on. Flashing up on the screen are all of the people that have joined the Patreon and are supporting me on the channel. And I do just want to say once again, a massive thank you to all of you for making it possible, because all of the videos that I make and all the tips that I research, I wouldn't have the time if I didn't have the support from you lot. And of course, we are getting very, very close to 30,000 subscribers. We still have just under 3 weeks to get there. And if we do, I will introduce 3 more leagues to the channel: Serie A, La Liga, and Bundesliga. So if you want to shout out in every video, join the Patreon down below. If you want to see those new leagues, feel free to just subscribe down below for free. And with that being said, let's get in to the first game of Week 16. I also read every single comment, so be sure to drop yours down below. But kicking it off, we have Arsenal up against Everton. Arsenal coming off the back of a 3-0 win against Monaco, and Everton coming off the back of a postponed Merseyside derby. Of course, it does have to be said, I suppose, that they beat Wolves 4-0 in the previous game week, but it's so far gone from then, and I do just think Arsenal are going to have a good day here. I think it's going to be a comfortable Arsenal win, so I'm going to go for a repeat scoreline of last night. Arsenal to win 3-0, and the tip is going to be Arsenal -1 handicap at 1.66. You could go Arsenal win to 0. You could go Arsenal and under 3.5 goals. You could go Arsenal and over 1.5 goals. I just think you need to be with Arsenal in some way, and I don't think Everton are going to be able to break past this Arsenal defence. Now, after this, it's Liverpool up against Fulham, and I'm tipping a specific market that I'm not sure I've actually ever tipped on the channel. I just think the odds are really good for how likely I think it will be. Now, Liverpool, honestly, they failed to impress against Girona. They got a 1-0 win thanks to a Salah penalty, and whilst it was a penalty, they just didn't look particularly threatening up top. Nunes missed a couple of chances, and they allowed a few sort of Girona chances as well. I think they were always going to win that game, which is fair enough, but I just don't think it was quite clicking. They're sort of winning ugly a little bit sometimes, Liverpool. Don't get me wrong. For the vast majority of the season, they've been phenomenal. You know, they're top of the Champions League and top of the Premier League. So I do think Liverpool at Anfield are going to win this one. But I'm going to say that it's going to be close. So I'm going to say Liverpool to win 2-1. With regards to Fulham, obviously, I think Arsenal deserved to beat them, and I think Arsenal did enough to beat them, but at the end of the day, Fulham got a point and restricted Arsenal from open play fairly well. So I think Fulham can give Liverpool a game here. I think they can score. So my tip is actually going to be Fulham +2 at 1.9. So Liverpool can still win, but as long as it's only by 1 goal, you win, and it's nearly evens. Alternatively, you could say Fulham +3 at 1.36, nearly 1.4, just for them to not get beaten by 3 goals. So even if Liverpool win 2-0 or 3-1, you would still win the bet backing Fulham +3. So I just think saying that Liverpool are going to win, but maybe edging Fulham to win. You could even go for Liverpool to win by exactly 1 goal. The odds would obviously then be way higher because it doesn't include the draw or the Fulham win. But I think Fulham can put out a show here, but I think Liverpool will in the end get the win. Now afterwards, it's St. James's Park for Newcastle up against Leicester. I'm not going to spend too long on this one. I think Newcastle are going to finally get a much-needed win, and Leicester obviously are going to be the recipients of that. Not to mention, of course, though, Leicester, well, I'm going to mention it, Leicester coming from behind with 2 goals against Brighton late on to draw 2-2. That wasn't expected. I thought both teams would score and over 2.5 goals, but I thought Brighton would get a 2-1 win. It was looking like it was going to be perfect for that prediction, and then Leicester scored again. But I think Newcastle are going to be a touch too strong for them here, so I'm going to say Newcastle to win 3-1. I thought about Newcastle and both teams to score, but just in case they don't, I'm going to tip Newcastle and over 2.5 goals at 1.66. Honestly, though, the value is jank there, so I'm going to change it, because the only way that doesn't come in is if Newcastle win 3, 4, 5-0, etc. And I think it's more likely Leicester do get a goal, and maybe Newcastle win 2-1. So I'm going to change it to Newcastle and both teams to score. And therefore, instead of the odds being 1.66, let's see what that brings the odds to. So 1.66 for over 2.5 goals and a Newcastle win. But for a Newcastle win and both teams to score, you get another unit on side. It's 2.62. So I'll push the button on that. After this, it's Wolverhampton Wanderers up against Ipswich, a relegation crunch clash. The previous game week, Ipswich lost 2-1 to Bournemouth, which we did predict. And I did tip over on the Patreon closer to kickoff, West Ham win and both teams to score against Wolves, and it ended 2-1 to West Ham. In the video, I just tipped both teams to score, but over on the Patreon and the YouTube members, I actually went heavier on West Ham than I did in the previous video. I think Wolves are going to bounce back here. This is just a bit more of a gut feeling. I think both teams will score, but Ipswich, you've got a 1-0 lead against Bournemouth. You can't walk away from that game with 0 points. It's not good enough. Wolves, they really need a win. If Wolves lose here, Gary O'Neill will get sacked. That's my prediction. I think as soon as that, I think if Wolves win, even though they've got a relatively easy run of fixtures coming up, they can't beat Ipswich at home after losing to West Ham in the way that they did. I think that's Gary O'Neill out the door. So I'm going to say that Wolves get the win they need, 2-1, and the tip is going to be Wolves to win at 1.9. Now after this, it's Nottingham Forest up against Aston Villa. Nottingham Forest in the previous game week, they beat Manchester United at Old Trafford, which was a crazy result. And Aston Villa knocked RB Leipzig out of the Champions League. I do think Leipzig have been a little bit unlucky in the Champions League, but they ultimately deserve the points they've got. And I mean, yeah, 0 points, knocked out. Aston Villa way up there, right up there in the Champions League, doing very well. This one I found really difficult to call. Aston Villa, other than that Leipzig result and their bounce-back win against Southampton, which was only a 1-0 win, they hadn't had any wins in the previous, I think, 8 fixtures. So it's really difficult to call, and Forest have had a good season. And obviously, Villa put a lot into that Leipzig game, so I'm just going to go for a 1-1 draw. My tip is going to be both teams to score at 1.66. I'm really struggling to pick a winner between those two. But after that, we travel to the Amex Stadium for Brighton up against Crystal Palace. In the previous game week, as I said, Brighton threw away a 2-goal lead against Leicester. Crystal Palace, they drew 2-2 with Manchester City. As I said in that video, that Palace are a little bit of a bogey team for Man City, but saying that, so is everyone these days apparently. I know Brighton have been struggling a lot with injuries, but they are simply better than Crystal Palace. They're at home. Look at the Premier League table. It tells me all I need to know. I'm going to say that Brighton win this one 2-1, and the tip is going to be Brighton to win at 1.85. Now, after this, it is the Manchester derby. Man City up against Manchester United. United, I think by the time I upload this video, they will have kicked off against Victoria Pilsen 15 minutes ago in the Europa League. Man City obviously lost again to Juventus this time, 2-0 in the Champions League. I think Man City are going to bounce back here because, right, every single time there's a United derby, or a Manchester derby, I should say, City they seem to fumble. Like, obviously, I'm not saying they lose every time, but even when City are at their peak, the peak of their powers, the Man United derby, the Manchester derby is always quite difficult for them, it seems, and they do sometimes throw up a funny result. I think because they're in such bad form, they're actually going to batter Man United here. Again, this is a little bit of a gut feeling. How can I say that City will get a win by more than 1 goal? It's beyond me, honestly, but it's a gut feeling, and I think Man United also aren't in the greatest spot. I expect them to beat Victoria Pilsen today, probably with both teams scoring, but I could see them dropping points there as well. I'm going to say Manchester City win this one 3-1. And I'm going to tip Man City and both teams to score at 2.75. I just think this is in the same way that United weirdly pick up results in this game when City are playing well. I think now that City aren't playing well, they're just going to find a way to win. Now, after this, it is Chelsea up against Brentford. Chelsea also playing tonight in the Conference League against Astana. They are traveling super far, basically to the Chinese border over in Kazakhstan, playing at sub-zero temperatures. I still think they're going to beat Astana regardless. But will they be tired? I mean, they do essentially have like a separate Conference League squad almost. I think they're still going to beat Brentford here. Brentford, once again, continuing their elite run at home, beating Newcastle 4-2. But away from home, they've only really played big teams and they've lost them all, scored in most of them, I think. And I think the same thing's going to happen here. I think Chelsea are going to win this one 4-1. And the tip is going to be Chelsea and both teams to score at 2.3 because it's just a really good pick this season. Chelsea won and both teams to score in the game against Tottenham. We tipped over 3.5 goals. Chelsea won and both teams to score against Southampton. We tipped that as well. So Chelsea are looking really good. And I think they'll be able to beat Brentford here, who just can't seem to travel. So I think this London derby will go the way of the Blues. Now, after this, oh my gosh, how do you predict this one? Southampton up against Tottenham. Tottenham, they were 2-0 up against Chelsea, obviously due to just Cucurella slipping over. You can't you can't really blame him. I would go as far as to say that. Like, you could just say, like, stay on your feet, lad. But if he's got a problem with his boots, like, you can't really blame him. So Tottenham absolutely capitulated despite being given a gift, 2 gifts at the start of the game. And Southampton, they lost 1-0 to Villa. I'm going to go for a shock here. I'm just going to say that it'll be a draw. Southampton 2, Tottenham 2. The tip is going to be both teams to score on over 2.5 goals at 1.5 because I think Southampton will score. Tottenham could easily win this one like 4-1, but I keep backing Tottenham to win the games they should win, and they simply don't. Like, if we go back, you know, I said Tottenham could get a point from Chelsea. They blew it. I said Tottenham could beat Bournemouth. They blew it. I said Tottenham could beat Fulham. They blew it. Let's keep going further back. Why not? Tottenham, I said they would lose to Man City, and they beat them. I didn't predict that either. Before that, I said Tottenham would beat Ipswich. They blew it. Before that, I said, what did I say before that? I said Tottenham would draw with Villa, and they beat Villa. So I can't predict Tottenham games. So my head says Tottenham win. My body says not that. So I'm going to go for a 2-2 draw, and both teams to score over 2.5 goals. Now, the final game, Monday Night Football, it is Bournemouth up against West Ham. I really like what Bournemouth are doing. They're on a European charge, and I think West Ham got the much-needed win against Wolves. I do think Bournemouth at the Vitality will be a step too far. So I'm going to give Bournemouth a win, 2-1. And obviously last week we predicted Bournemouth to win 2-1 and actually tipped Bournemouth to win at above evens, and they did win 2-1, so it was a perfect tip. This week I'm going with both teams to score at 1.53 for the fact that I think it could end in a draw. West Ham could even win. I just think both teams will find the back of the net, but I'm gonna shade the cherries in this one and say that Bournemouth get another 2-1 win. So that does it for the Week 16 Premier League predictions. If you did enjoy it, please do drop a like, subscribe. As I said, I'm not gonna say right now that I'm starting La Liga, Serie A and Bundesliga videos definitely, but it's looking like that we will be because of the trajectory we're on in terms of subscribers. So thank you so much for the support, and if we do get started with those videos, at least for this season, I cannot wait to do that. So drop a like, as I said, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video very soon.